The heirloom ornament shattered against the marble floor as my mother's hands instinctively reached for my niece's drawing instead. Tiny glass fragments caught the Christmas lights, sparkling like cruel confetti around my son's feet. That ornament, the one my 8-year-old Liam had spent 3 weekends restoring from my grandmother's collection, lay destroyed while everyone's attention immediately shifted to my sister's daughter. "Natalie, show Grandma what else you made at school," my sister Patricia urged, as if my son weren't standing there, watching his painstaking work dismissed like yesterday's newspaper. The holiday music playing through my parents' surround sound system suddenly felt like it was coming from underwater. I watched my son's small hands tremble as he knelt to gather the broken pieces, his face carefully composed in that way children manage when they're trying desperately not to cry in front of people who've hurt them. This wasn't new. This wasn't even surprising anymore. But something inside me, something that had been bending for 8 long years, finally, irrevocably snapped. My name is Sophie. I'm 31 and a bookstore assistant manager. This is the story of how I demolished a family facade to build an authentic life. For 8 years, I'd watched my family systematically diminish my son. The pattern had been established from the moment I announced my pregnancy at 23, unplanned, unmarried, with a boyfriend who vanished at the first mention of diapers and responsibility. I became the family disappointment, the cautionary tale my parents referenced in hushed tones when talking to cousins about college choices. Meanwhile, Patricia had done everything correctly. Prestigious university, marriage to a financial advisor, 2 perfectly timed children, and a house in the right neighborhood. My younger brother Daniel followed my father into architecture. And there I was, the family failure. What had begun as disappointment in my life choices had twisted over time into something uglier, something that now targeted my innocent child. My mother's comments that always contained hidden barbs. "Liam seems to be catching up in reading. That's wonderful." My father lecturing me about financial planning while showering my niece and nephew with experiences Liam could only watch from the sidelines. The constant, endless comparisons. I'd tried shielding Liam, manufacturing excuses for forgotten birthdays and unexplained exclusions. "Grandpa had an important meeting," I'd explain when he didn't appear at Liam's school play. Grandma must have mixed up the dates when his science fair achievement went unacknowledged, all while watching my parents reschedule business trips and cancel appointments to attend my niece and nephew's every soccer game and dance recital. Just yesterday, I'd received a text from Patricia. "Mom wants to know what Liam might want for Christmas. She's already finished shopping for the kids. It was December 23rd. The annual family Christmas gathering was today, and she was just now asking about Liam's gift." As I watched my son gathering broken glass, pieces of his heart, really, I felt something crystallize inside me. Years of acceptance hardened into something with edges. "Mom," I said, my voice unexpectedly steady, "Liam restored that ornament from grandmother's collection. Don't you have anything to say about breaking it?" The room fell silent. My mother looked at me with genuine surprise, as if the coat rack had suddenly offered an opinion on politics. "It was an accident," she said dismissively. "Now, Natalie was telling me about her school project." "No," I interrupted, rising from the antique chair I'd always perched on uncomfortably. "Not this time. Liam, go get your coat, please." "But Mom," he started, still holding pieces of glass. "Now, sweetheart, leave the glass." When he'd left the room, I turned to face my family. My heartbeat felt like thunder in my ears, but my voice remained unnervingly calm. "For 8 years, I've watched you treat my son like he's invisible. I've made excuses for you, tried to protect him, hoped that eventually you'd recognize the brilliant, compassionate child he is. But you've never even tried." "Sophie, you're being dramatic," my father said, finally looking up from his tablet. "Am I? When was the last time you remembered his birthday without a reminder? When have you ever attended one of his school events? When have you shown him 1/10 of the attention you lavish on his cousins?" Patricia scoffed, setting down her wine glass. "Just because we don't treat him like he's made of glass." "Made of glass?" I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Is that what you call basic decency? He's a child who has done nothing wrong except be born to me instead of one of you." My mother stood, color rising in her neck. We've always welcomed you both. Welcomed? You tolerate us. There's a difference. And I'm done subjecting my son to your conditional love. I carefully picked up the largest remaining piece of the broken ornament, a curved fragment with part of a painted cardinal still visible. He found this in grandmother's attic when you were clearing out her house. You told him it was trash, but he asked if he could keep it. He spent 3 weekends carefully gluing it back together because he remembered me saying how much I loved watching the cardinals with grandmother when I was little. I held up the fragment, letting the light catch it. He's 8 years old, and he has more genuine compassion than anyone in this room. He deserves better than what you've given him. Daniel, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. Soph, you're making everyone uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? I turned to him, feeling tears burn behind my eyes but refusing to let them fall. Where was this concern when Dad forgot to include Liam in the family vacation photos, or when Mom conveniently ran out of space on the family Christmas card? Your silence has been as harmful as their actions. Liam returned with his coat, his eyes wide with confusion and something else. Relief, maybe, that someone was finally acknowledging what he'd felt for years. I took his hand. We're leaving, and we won't be back, I told my stunned family. Merry Christmas. The drive home was quiet. I could feel Liam watching me, processing what had happened. We had driven to my parents' house in the suburbs that morning, and now we were heading back to our apartment downtown, about 40 minutes in the holiday traffic. I'm sorry about the ornament, sweetheart, I finally said, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. It's okay, Mom, he replied softly. I can fix something else. For us. His simple resilience made my throat tighten. When we got home, I made hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, and we sat under blankets watching Christmas movies. But I could tell Liam was subdued, trying to understand the day's events. That night, after he'd gone to bed, I sat at our small kitchen table staring at my phone. The screen glowed with messages from my family, first indignant, then confused, then demanding. I ignored them all and instead opened my contacts to James, my supervisor at the bookstore where I'd worked for years. He'd been inviting us to his family's Christmas celebration for 3 years running, and I'd always declined, feeling obligated to subject myself and Liam to my biological family's subtle cruelty. No more. I was finished with obligation, done with hoping for change, done with watching my son's spirit crack a little more with each family gathering. My thumb hovered over James's name. This wasn't just about finding somewhere to spend Christmas. This was about actively choosing a different path, one where Liam would be valued, where kindness wasn't rationed like something scarce. I pressed call. Sophie? James answered, surprise evident in his voice. Everything okay? I was wondering if that invitation to your family Christmas is still open, I said, my voice catching slightly. There was a pause. Of course it is. We'd love to have you both. Is something wrong? The genuine concern in his voice, concern I'd never heard from my own family when it came to Liam, made my eyes sting with tears I wouldn't let fall. I'll explain tomorrow. What time should we come? After confirming the details and exchanging cell numbers to coordinate, I hung up feeling lighter than I had in years. The next morning, James arrived at our apartment at 9 a.m. to pick us up. He lived across the city near his parents, so he'd offered to drive us rather than having us navigate unfamiliar neighborhoods on Christmas Day. Christmas Day with James's family changed everything. His family treated Liam like they treated every other child there, with warmth, interest, and genuine affection. His mother praised Liam's manners and asked about his science projects. His father taught him chess moves. James's nieces and nephews included him in their games without hesitation or hierarchy. When it came time for presents, there was a small pile waiting for Liam. Books James had selected knowing Liam's interest in astronomy, a model rocket kit from his parents, hand-knitted mittens from his grandmother. The contrast to our experience with my family was stark enough to take my breath away. These people, who had no biological connection to us, showed more authentic love in one day than my family had in 8 years. Meanwhile, my phone continued vibrating with messages from my family. My mother's texts evolved from self-righteous to manipulative. I can't believe you would embarrass us like that to... Your father's blood pressure is dangerously high because of your scene. Patricia alternated between angry accusations and fake tearful appeals. My father attempted to lure us back with financial incentives, offering to start a college fund for Liam, something he'd done for his other grandchildren years earlier. I didn't respond to any of them. This wasn't a temporary protest designed to extract an apology. This was a permanent separation from people who had proven repeatedly that they were incapable of loving my son the way he deserved. But I wasn't done. Walking away was just the beginning. In the days after Christmas, I returned to work with new determination. I submitted my application for the bookstore's management training program, something I'd hesitated to do before, having internalized my family's narrative that I wasn't capable of advancement. With James's encouragement, I was accepted, and by March, I was assistant manager with a substantial raise. When Liam's birthday arrived in April, I used some of my new income to plan a celebration at the local science museum, inviting his entire class, James and his family, and neighbors who had become friends. I sent formal invitations to my parents, sister, and brother, knowing exactly what would happen. As predicted, they didn't show. But this time, Liam didn't notice their absence. He was too busy being celebrated by people who genuinely cared about him, his eyes wide with wonder as the planetarium show displayed constellations across the dome above us, his laughter echoing through the exhibit halls. Back home that evening after the celebration, I selected specific photos from the party. Liam surrounded by friends, blowing out candles on his astronomy-themed cake, unwrapping thoughtfully chosen gifts, and created a beautiful digital album. I shared it publicly on social media, tagging my family members and writing, "Grateful for the people who choose to be part of Liam's life and celebrate the amazing person he is becoming. Some family is born, but the best family is chosen." I knew my mother's social circle would see it. I knew my father's business associates would see it. I knew Patricia's carefully curated image would be questioned, and I wanted them to feel every ounce of what they'd lost through their own choices. The fallout was immediate and fierce. My phone exploded with messages from extended family members who had only heard my parents' sanitized version of events. Cousins and aunts I barely spoke with were suddenly concerned, having seen my pointed social media post in their feeds. My mother called in tears, claiming I was deliberately trying to hurt them. My father threatened to remove me from his will, as if that held any power over me anymore. "You already cut Liam out of your hearts," I replied in my only response. "There's nothing else you can take from us that matters." In May, James asked me to dinner. Just me, not Liam, for the first time. He had arranged for his sister to watch Liam at our apartment so we could have an evening alone. "I've wanted to ask you out for years," he admitted over dinner, but the timing never seemed right. By summer, we were dating seriously. James was everything my family couldn't comprehend, genuinely supportive, interested in both my aspirations and Liam's development. He didn't measure my worth by conventional milestones or academic pedigrees. He saw me clearly, not as a collection of perceived failures, but as a whole person. When my parents discovered our relationship through social media, where I occasionally posted photos of our outings, they attempted reconciliation, suddenly interested in meeting this man who had changed me. I recognized their pattern instantly. They wanted to claim connection to our happiness without acknowledging how they'd contributed to our pain. I declined their invitation with a simple email. "Liam and I are building a life with people who valued us even when we had nothing to offer but ourselves. You had 8 years to be part of that life and consistently chose not to be. That choice stands." The following Christmas, we hosted our own gathering. Our apartment, now a larger 2-bedroom we could afford with my improved salary, filled with people who genuinely cared about us. James and his family, co-workers who had become friends, parents of Liam's classmates. As I watched Liam excitedly showing his friends his telescope by the window, his face illuminated with joy in a home surrounded by people who cherished him, I knew I'd made the only possible decision. The revenge wasn't in the dramatic exit or the returned gifts or the ignored calls. It wasn't even in the social media posts that exposed their neglect. It was in this, creating a life so rich with authentic connection that my biological family's absence was no longer a wound, but merely a faded mark. My parents, sister, and brother lost the privilege of watching Liam grow into the remarkable person he was becoming. They lost the joy of his discoveries, his questions that revealed how deeply he thought about the world, the warmth of his compassion. Their loss entirely, not ours. The final piece fell into place when James proposed the following spring, not just to me, but to Liam as well, kneeling with 2 boxes, an engagement ring for me and a family medallion for Liam. "I want us to be a family," he told Liam seriously. "Not to replace your birth father, but to be someone in your life who will always show up for you, who will never let you down, who will love you unconditionally." Liam's expression as he accepted the medallion, serious, joyful, secure, was worth every painful holiday, every difficult conversation, every sleepless night spent questioning my decisions. We married in summer, a small ceremony in the bookstore's garden courtyard where James and I had worked together for years. His family, now our family, surrounded us with authentic acceptance. Liam stood beside us as our best man, his pride evident in every carefully executed responsibility. 2 weeks after the wedding, I received a letter from Daniel, the only member of my family who had eventually sent a genuine apology, acknowledging his role in enabling the family's treatment of Liam. He wrote that our parents had been devastated by the wedding photos he'd seen online when mutual cousins who still followed my social media had shared them with him, finally understanding what they'd lost. "They talk about Liam now," he wrote. "They have his school picture on their mantle. Mom keeps saying she wishes she could tell him she's sorry." I showed the letter to James, who squeezed my hand in support but remained silent, letting me make my own decision without influence. I wrote back to Daniel with a single paragraph. "I'm glad they've reflected on their actions, but Liam isn't a prop they can pick up when it's convenient and discard when it's not. He's a child who deserves consistency and unconditional love. When they're ready to offer that, with actions, not just convenient regrets, we can discuss what a relationship might look like. Until then, we're complete with the family we've chosen." 3 years after we walked out of my parents' house, Liam gave me a Christmas gift, a new handcrafted ornament, a cardinal like the one from my grandmother's collection, but this one intact, hanging from a ribbon attached to a framed family photo of the 3 of us, Liam, James, and me. "I saved this piece from that Christmas," he told me as I unwrapped it, my vision blurring. I knew someday I'd find the right way to make it whole again. That ornament hangs on our tree now, among decorations made by James's nieces and nephews, beside handcrafted treasures from neighbors and friends who have become our chosen family. There are no empty spaces where my biological family should be. We have filled our lives with people who understand how to love unconditionally. That, I believe, is the truest revenge, not just surviving without those who diminished you, but thriving in their absence, building something beautiful and authentic from the wreckage they created. My son will grow up knowing his worth isn't determined by people who couldn't see his light. He will understand that family is defined by actions, not blood, and that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away from those who cannot love you properly to find those who can and will. As for my parents, they attempted reconnection several times over the years, but I maintained clear boundaries. We eventually permitted occasional supervised visits after Liam turned 11, but only after consulting with Liam and respecting his comfort level. They never regained the privilege of being significant figures in his life. Patricia's perfect marriage ended in divorce when Liam was 12, and tellingly, she suddenly wanted to reconnect afterward. She reached out through Daniel, asking to meet for coffee, but I insisted any relationship would need to begin with a genuine apology to Liam first. Daniel did make sincere amends over time, and we now have a cautious but civil relationship where he visits occasionally and has earned a small place in Liam's life through consistent, respectful behavior. James legally adopted Liam on his 10th birthday, with Liam's enthusiastic consent. The adoption was finalized 3 months later, giving Liam the security of 2 legal parents and cementing our family bond in ways my biological family never managed. As for Liam's biological father, he signed away his parental rights without hesitation when contacted by our lawyer, having never once reached out during the entire decade of his son's life. Liam chose to hyphenate his last name, honoring both his birth identity and his new family connection. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.